Hey guys, what's up? This video is going to be about hyper farming, and I probably get asked about hyper farming the most, other than how to be a trap. But hyper farming seems to be um, something a lot of people want to do, but they don't quite understand um, how to get it set up properly. So that's what I'm going to try to do in this video. Um, So basically, the rationale to be a hype uh, to do a hyper is to produce more resources. Okay. Um, and there's there's two ways to do a hyper. Okay. You can hyper with your main, or you can create another account and then send those resources to your main. So that's an important decision that you need to make, you know, because if you use your main to be your hyper, if you just want to have one account and you don't want to mess with having multiple accounts, then you're gonna have to send your extra resources to the bank, or you'll have to trade resources with another player. So those are things you got to keep in mind, that if you don't want to have a separate account, then you're not going to be able to really just feed yourself those resources, okay? Because if you can see here, I have 9 million wood. So if this was just my account, I would, they would just be sitting here. I'd have to send them to the bank, or send them to another player. Because once you get, and I'll show you, once you get to a certain point in your production, it stops. So once I get to 1.9 million, my wood production is going to stop. So it's not like you can just become a hyper and then, you're just going to produce, billions and billions and billions of resources. You have to unload those resources into another account to produce more. So that's what I'll show you now. Is I'll just go ahead and um, I'll send this 9 million to my main, so that then I'll be able to produce more. And the same goes for the gold too. The gold has to be sent to another account, so that this account will be able to produce more. So that's why you see everybody, almost everybody who has, a big account has several, they'll have several, hyper farm accounts where they just feed their main resources, and then they'll build all the troops that they need, and stuff like that. So the next important question you need to ask yourself is, what type of hyper farm are you going to be? Do you want to be wood, stone, or food? And you can't you can't hyper farm every resource from one account. You have to choose one. There's no way to mix all these buildings um, and do it properly. You have to choose one type and then run with it. So that's why you see all these buildings are wood, except for the buildings that I need to upgrade my castle. So if you're not at castle 25 yet, then you don't want to tear down all your buildings. You want to leave the ones you need to upgrade. You need to leave those up. Okay. So you need to choose one type of resource, and the best way to do that is to find out from your guild, ask them what they need, find out who's hyper farming what? If you have, a bunch of people hyper farming ore and some people hyper farming wood, but you have, maybe one or two stone hypers, then maybe, you should be a stone hyper. So that's really something that you need to find out from your guild, what do they need, and then um, go ahead and just, do that type. And there's not really one type's not really better than another type. A lot of people will be ore hypers because it takes a little more to produce ore, so it's viewed as a little more valuable, um, things like that. But in reality, they're pretty much equal. It takes a little more, like I said, it takes a little longer to produce ore. So if you're going to um, say you want to hyper farm every resource, then you're going to want to create 5 accounts plus your main because you're going to want to have two ore hypers because, like I said, ore takes, it takes more to produce it. So um, you're going to want to have one one wood hyper, one stone hyper, one food hyper, and two ore hypers, and then you're going to want to have your main. So you'll have 6 accounts. Um, if you want to go down that road, and that's a lot of work. I mean, you're talking, you know, you're you're talking several hours a day for months and months and months, just getting um, everything set up right to the point where you can start seeing the benefits of what of all your work. And so that's something that you need to decide. Those are things you need to decide how much time and effort that you want to put into it, because it does take a lot of time and effort to hyper if you want to hyper farm every resource, you know, without using a bot. If you want to run bot accounts, that's up to you. I mean, I guess it goes against policy, but it seems like people don't really get in trouble for it as long as you're a big spender, then you're probably not going to get in trouble for it. But um, I like to run my accounts the way I like, and they do. They're not just my accounts are hyper farms, but they're also, you know, they're fighters as well. I can reinforce with them, I can fight with them. I can do a lot of different things with them. I have infirmaries. So that's what you'll need to decide which type you want to do. And then once you decide which type of resource you want to hyper farm, um, then you'll have to go ahead and upgrade all these buildings to one type. And I would suggest not, you don't really want these buildings to get to 25. You don't really even want them to get to 20 because if you have if you're making, you know, a lot amount of resources, then you're just going to be a target and you'll have to shield all the time. You could do that if you want to. If you're just going to shield all the time, that's what you plan to do, then you can go ahead and just upgrade all these to 25 and, produce a ton of produce a ton of it. But if you don't plan to shield all the time, you can't afford to shield all the time, then you probably don't want this to go over 10 million. You just want to log in, make sure you log in every 8 hours and just unload your resources to your main or to the bank, or trade with other players. But you don't want to be a big target, where somebody just sits there right next to you and just farms you all day because you know, you're making a ton of resources every hour and they're just stealing it. So you want to kind of have a balance between, you know, making a lot of resources, but not being a huge target either. So that's something you'll have to decide if you want to shield all the time or not. Um, so the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get your hero to gold that's associated with what you're trying to hyper. So if you're a wood hyper, you're going to want to get incinerator to gold, because it's going to give you 150% timber production. So that's huge. So if you're going to be an ore hyper, then you're going to want to get tracker to gold. And if you're a food hyper, you're going to want to get this guy to gold, which is, yeah, 225% food production. And then if you're a stone hyper, then you're going to want to get Death Knight to gold, and that's 150%. So, and then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get all your talents set right. You're going to want, if you haven't unlocked all your talents yet, that's okay. You don't have to worry about not having, level 60 talents. You can still hyper farm a ton of resources without having that. But you're definitely going to want to have your timber production at 3, 50-50, 50 out of 50, and then you're going to want your gold production also filled up, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Um, and then you're going to want your timber production filled up, and there it is there. So you're going to want all those 1, 2, and 3 completely full, and then as much of the gold as you can, as well as your research and construction speed. So, um, and then the other thing is you're going to want to get your boost. So if you're a wood hyper, then you're going to want to buy a 25% boost for a week, and then go ahead and use that, and that'll give you 25% um, for a week. So that'll really help out quite a bit. And the other thing I want to talk about is gold. So yes, you're going to be a hyper for wood, but you're also can be a hyper for gold in any hyper farm. So you're going to want to have as many manors as you can. I have infirmaries because I use these, like I said, as um, for reinforcement as well. So these aren't as good of a gold hyper as it could be, but you're also going to want to have manors, and then you're going to want to get Soul Forger to gold. So let me just show that, because he's going to give you 150% gold production. Okay, and then you're going to want to sit when you're offline. You're just going to want to sit in your gold production gear, and that's what this is. So then when you log back in, you're going to have 3 million, 5 million, um, however much gold that you produce, you're going to have that, and you're going to have that every 8 hours. You're going to have, you're going to have your 9 million wood, and you're going to have your 3 to 5 million gold every hour, every 8 hours, and then you're just going to um, unload that on your main, or you're going to give it to the bank. So that's the purpose of hyper farming, and um, I know that was just a quick overview, but just let me know if you have any questions about it, and good luck setting up your hyper farm account.